Good afternoon, Franklin Township. This is Bill Bowman from the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
And this is PJ Parker from the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
And this is the January 15th, 2021 edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. This is kind of a stealth news hour. We didn't want to tell you who we have on because it's a surprise. And it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting, we think. So we can't really talk about it. So I'm going to bring on our guest, and
that's, I think, the best option we have.
And we're going to go from there. Okay, here we go. Welcome, Brian Levine, former three-term Franklin Township mayor, first directly elected mayor in the township, former Somerset County Freeholder, former Somerset County Freeholder director, back when they were called the Freeholders. Now, of course, they're called the County Commissioners. Welcome to the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour.
And what brings you to the Franklin Reporter News Hour right now?
Hey, Bill, PJ, thanks for having me. As you, Franklin Reporter, reported, I guess it was last week, I was forming an exploratory committee to see about running for governor of New Jersey. And as of today, I've decided I'm going to file paperwork with the state to make an official candidacy, which also entails going around to the various county committees and such as that. And then the most important, making my case to the voters of New Jersey to be the governor.
Wow.
Right. So
well,
he's
this is indeed news.
Yes, it is. This is news. And you heard it here first, Franklin Township. Former mayor, former Somerset County Freeholder Brian Levine announcing his candidacy for governor. So now you ran for another state office once, right? You ran for state senate?
Yes.
Okay, but that, of course, wasn't a statewide office. That was a district office. So tell us, give us a thumbnail of your platform.
Okay. Well, in Franklin here, I think we're a good model. Some of my predecessors and when I was mayor to keep fiscal responsibility. The state, frankly, is a fiscal mess. In the best of times and good times, the state is broke. They are underfunded on their pension. It's the budgets aren't realistic. And one good thing is they make the state, the municipalities, the counties, the boards of ed have realistic budgets, your income and your outflow. And the state doesn't follow that themselves. As a CPA, which I am, I'd like to see things done properly and realistically. So the one thing is, it bothers me that the state is like that a mess. I think we can do so much better. There's so much potential, and we squander it. And I think people have to be concerned with integrity at all levels, and that's what I want to bring to the table also, make sure things are, one quick example. I was always big on open government. I brought cameras into the council meeting when I was mayor, just because people should know what's going on. And if they don't like it, they should tell us. Then you're strong enough to either change your mind and go with the people or tell them why you're keeping your decision. So that's it in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a big nut to crack. What really kind of tipped the scales for you to say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
There were several things going on. For years, I've been a little frustrated with the state and how they've run things. And then I'm in my accounting practice where there's countless businesses and individuals. I see that the ancillary fallout of the pandemic. Yes, we're concerned about the virus and people getting it and caring for them. But I feel like the ancillary victims, like the restaurant, the hairdresser, the people who never wanted to go to a food bank and now feel that they're forced to because money just isn't there. The unemployment, and the state has an unemployment fund. It's usually hand to mouth anyway. So in an emergency, they never save for a rainy day. The state borrows $9 billion and uses part of it to fix a golf course and people losing their jobs. And then nursing homes where people have unfortunately died. It's all this ancillary stuff that it's nice to be upfront about the pandemic and the virus, but like, are people thinking about these other things? And then like I look at somewhere like Rutgers, they've got a more complicated admission system than other places, and they're more expensive than other state universities, and we're wondering why our youth don't want to go there. So it's like a lot of these things. The DMV is a mess. And it was a bigger mess during the pandemic. Now I know these are times you've got to react quickly, but you got to react quickly. You got to do something. It. I feel people's frustration, and I'm frustrated also.
So
Do you
what
think the state did not act quickly enough at the onset of the pandemic to provide for the constituency or anticipate the needs?
Yeah, I think that they still really haven't responded properly on the state level.
what would you have done differently, if anything, than what Governor Murphy has done so far since March?
I would have gathered and spoke to and offered assistance. We have to find a way. That's part of the state being broke all the time, even the good times. It's hard to offer assistance. But to those businesses that are hurting, our state workers, I think our state workers are conscientious. They want to work. They could have been trained to help these businesses get over things. There could have been other ways to assist the restaurants, such as when the food banks were having lines out the door and the restaurants were hurting. We could have worked with the restaurants to supply some food. The specifics would have to certainly be worked out, but just a little bit of creativity, and that would have helped two different constituencies who both wanted to do things for themselves.
What about the shutdown? Did you agree with that?
I mean, to a degree, probably not as strongly, though. I think we could have found a way, because now, like, much more things are open that were shut before, and the pandemic's around where it was and peaking again, but we're not totally shutting down again, which makes me think perhaps we're too quick to close everything down. We certainly have to be safe. That's priority number one. But it's there's science on ways to do that also. And I think no one really knew the full answer on that. We're making it up as we went along. So they say there were pandemic playbooks, which maybe people weren't following.
Okay. Now the big topic obviously is vaccine, and the fact that there just is the promised stockpile of vaccine isn't there. So if you were governor today, how would you deal with that? What would you do?
No, I've always been an advocate. I like to think that for my constituents and for people. So, like, here's the practical end. If you're really not you're going to the manufacturers and the federal government and they're not giving it to you, you only have so much. And it is being prioritized, but you have to fight for your people to get it. I would do that. In New Jersey, we're more congested. I think we've got a higher senior population. We certainly have probably more per capita emergency workers than most states, as I see it. So it would be certainly something we should do. Again, the priority list is we have to follow that. But then you look at places like New York, as I've heard, where they had to dispose of some vaccines because they weren't able to get it out on time. I mean, how ridiculous and unconscionable is that? So getting it out and getting out quickly. And I know people, they've called me because they knew I was a mayor and freeholder, frustrated that how do they get further ahead in the line for the vaccine. And it's things we've got to look at, especially our first line workers, frontline workers.
Frontline, yeah.
Thanks.
The first responders, right?
There you go. Combine the two.
Well, the first responders on the medical front, but there are first responders on so many levels within the state itself. It's not. Of course, the healthcare professionals who are caring for sick people are absolutely first line, and deserve to be protected first. But there are other, as you say, ancillary people and industries, food stores that have been essential businesses, obviously, from day one. Uh, People, the custodians in schools, and those who are custodians in corporate environments, where cleanliness is the bottom line. If things are not clean, sanitized, ventilated well, the flourishing of this virus is just exponentially greater. So people of an essential nature need to be first in line here. Now I know the governor just recently said 65 and up, and those with pre-existing conditions under 65. How is that going to happen, and what is your feeling about the way it seems to be somewhat random at the moment?
Yeah, it does seem to be. Now, I was at Somerset County the first day we started giving out the vaccination, and the people who were getting it were firefighters, first aid, some of the police who were more in contact with people. So that was following well. Where people in prisons are getting them before senior citizens and other workers, and I think that's something I would have re-examined a little bit. Now, hopefully, by the time the next governor is sworn in January 2022, this will be behind us. We don't know, but we certainly have to have the playbook for
What
next
would you have done differently?
Pardon me?
What would you have done differently?
It's part of it is just good at this for the next one. Part of it is planning and learning from our mistakes. On this one, it's the strong priority list. Again, there's the people who are at risk and potentially at risk should be there. Or as we've said, the first responders, frontline, our police, and security people certainly have to be there. Seniors, vulnerable, people with pre-existing conditions, or compromised immune systems. I mean, the pecking order is probably pretty good. I don't fall in the first few categories, but I'm willing to take my place later on and step aside for those who need it.
Well, what you said about the next one, we're still smack in the middle of this one, and it's, if anything, escalating. It's obviously surged right after holidays, and this last Christmas holiday, we're seeing a tremendous surge nationwide. So we're not hopefully ever going to have another one after this. We're right in the middle of this one still. So the chief problems still are masking, distancing, the availability of vaccination, and convincing people who still think that masking isn't it. Distancing has nothing to do with it. Well, it does. It does. It's all for protection of ourselves and each other. And that's, well, I'm preaching now. I don't mean to do that. But again, we're right smack in the middle of it now. So if you were to be governor in January of 22, then I would venture to say we're still going to be in the middle of this one.
I hope with vaccinations we're done. There's no guarantee. We never thought this would happen. And then this one, look, I'm not a scientist, but this one seemed to come so fluky. So that doesn't mean another one can't happen. Again, we've got to be prepared. And I guess, to be fair, it's hard to know if this, when starting, if this is just another virus or if this has pandemic potential.
I just want to put a reminder out to the folks. We have a pretty good group of people watching. If you have a question for the gubernatorial candidate, or you just want to make a comment, do so in the comment section down below here, and we will read your comments and we'll get those up. We can. I had a question for you, and it just flew out of my head. So the next.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead, Peach, because I can't remember my question.
Okay. The current state of the Republican Party nationwide is really being questioned. How do you
Yeah.
feel about where the Republican Party is right now? And where do you fit in the scheme of what it is versus what it has been traditionally and where you see it going?
When I'll go back to my history slightly. When I ran for mayor, obviously on the Republican ticket, my concern was always what's happening in town. I didn't really concern myself much with state issues except as they would affect the town, not international. Again, as it would affect us. I always could have an opinion, of course. Same thing with Freeholder. And now with governor. My concentration is what do we have to do to New Jersey? There's good Republican ideas, there's good Democratic ideas, there's good independent ideas. I'll take any good idea. Yes, the Republican Party is having its issues, but what in the beginning of my career, not my political career, but just getting going, Tom Kean was governor, and I remember admiring him. Said he's the kind of governor, the Republican, which seems to me kind of the gold standard.
In what way?
He had his ideas. I remember him from back then being a little bit tight on the purse strings, but I'm willing to work with anyone who had a good idea and to get things done, and a gentleman. So I always thought he was kind of a good guy. So that's, again, I don't want to get too caught up in national issues. Obviously they're important, but my concentration is, New Jersey. Where are we? What do we have? Why are we a fiscal mess? How come Massachusetts and Maryland and Delaware and Pennsylvania and New York are so much better on things like tourism than we are? And why does it cost more to pave a mile of road than anywhere in the country, as I understand it? So that's all. Democratic, Republican, Independent.
Why do
it.
Why do you think it costs more to pave a mile of road in this state than in those other states? What?
You know what? I'm not sure. It's one thing. That's like just one thing I would certainly want to look at. When I was, and you may know better than I because you're an investigative reporter. When I was on the state Red Tape Review Commission, which Governor Christie appointed me to, and Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno chaired a bipartisan committee. People would bring things before us to cut the red tape. I understand the state legislature is finally kind of bringing something like that forward again. But anyway, that particular issue was not brought before us. But it's I don't want to think so, but maybe there's a good reason for it. I don't know. But those are some of the things you look at. It's my business background too. Why is this happening? Examine. Can we build the mousetrap a little bit better? If not, fine. If we can,
Right.
Let's do it.
So when folks are griping about life in New Jersey, the main thing they always say is, of course, taxes. Property taxes are too high. What would you do? Do you have any thoughts as to what you would do to lessen that burden on residential taxpayers?
Now you have a town like Franklin here. It's good size, probably still in the top 25 in size in the state, maybe up into the top 20. So we can afford an engineering department and public works and finance and all that, and those run nicely. There's a lot of little towns, but frankly, they're kind of models of shared services. Their taxes aren't really that much more, or sometimes less than others because they know they have to share public works and such as that. Education is 2/3 of our tax bill. I think it's good that we put it into education. That's the most important thing. And I really couldn't see us touching the money that goes into the classroom, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, and such as that, even as far as the custodians and the people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where there is a lot of duplication is in the administration, and I don't mean within a district. Pick a town. Everyone just about has their own full cabinet, multi-million dollars of administrators. If that were even put into the classroom, I'm not even saying you want to cut it, but if you put that in the classroom, I think that would work a lot better. That's part of the property tax bill. The other thing is, um, just taking, again, I keep putting my CPA hat on, but this is done with businesses. It was when I worked for a Fortune 500 company. You look at things and say, what do I need and what do I want? A lot of people say, gee, I would like a brand new car every year and a trip to Tahiti. But they say, it's a good idea, but I can't afford it this year. And government's like, often like, it's a good idea. I can't afford it, but I can pass it on to the grandchildren. They'll pay for it. And I think that kind of mentality has to stop. We've done that, with the state pension plan. It's ridiculous. But keep putting a good eye on things, holding the line. And we do that in municipalities. And I guess I could check this out. But I think when I left as mayor, again, holding on tight, I think we had one of the highest surpluses in the state at the time, meaning money in the bank, and cash flow. So it's keeping a good eye on things. If I got my fingers in the meat of it, I'm sure I'd come up with specifics, which would be better, I guess. But
We have a question from a viewer,
Mhm.
Michael Harris. He says, Mr. Levine, please speak to New Jersey's gun laws with regards to obtaining a permit to lawfully carry a legal firearm. Currently, New Jersey is a may-issue state. However, it's clear to the legal gun owners community that New Jersey does not issue carry permits to civilians. Me, along with thousands of others, feel this is unfair and unreasonable. There should be a criteria and process in place to allow legal gun owners to carry, as in most states in the United States. What do you think about that?
Okay. Thank Mr. Harris for the question. In New Jersey, we have some of the most, if not the most, gun laws in the nation. I certainly don't think we need more than we've got. It's as far as the legal carry permit, to be specific, it is, to me, almost everything is on the table. If I agree at the end, then that would be great. I would sign a bill. If I disagree, I would look it over and veto and give my reasons why. But certainly, if, as it usually happens, for someone to really get a carry permit, it's not handed out willy-nilly. Right now, police departments screen anyone who wants a firearm. That's great. That's as it should be. To get a legal carry permit in just about every other state, you have to be super squeaky clean. And except for someone losing a firearm, which frankly, those who really are concerned that doesn't happen, they're not the ones committing the gun crimes. So it's I couldn't see myself going for more restrictions unless someone pointed it out. They just cut the size of magazines that are in guns in the last year or two, and taking away some hunting. But anything's on the table, and if that's was a concern, I would put a group together, bipartisan, because that's the way I do things, to see where we should be and to give me real advice, real solutions.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Harris.
Harris, that does it. And if you want to invite anyone, like me or anyone, to give me specifics that anything that he or she may have.
I have a specific that I'm not quite sure how this can be addressed. There was recently an incident in New Jersey gun range where a young man pointed the gun at himself, and it was a suicide. And I'm just wondering, how does something like that happen? This may be beyond your purview or this discussion, but as long as we're talking about legal permits, suppose this person did not have a permit, but he was with his friends and somebody had a permit, yet he was the one who picked up the pistol. And theoretically, he did turn it on himself, but he could easily have turned it on every single person in there, with or without the permits. Now, forgive my ignorance if I don't know what the statutes are to even entering into a facility like this. I'll make the leap, and I would ask somebody who knows, like Michael Harris, about those kind of gun permit restrictions. If you want to chime in here, Michael Harris, that would be terrific, just to correct me and educate the rest of Franklin. But that's somewhere along the line there was a restriction failure, I think. What would you do? I mean, should there be more stringency for someplace like an area where legally permitted gun activity is? I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about that.
I think that in two kinds of ways. Number one is an adult who gets a permit is supposed to know the rules, and they do know the rules because they're told what they are. That the weapon should be carefully secured when you don't have it, et cetera, et cetera. Someone dropped the ball, I'm guessing, on that one, that someone could get access to it. The other thing I think of too is if, and I don't know the specifics of that case in general. If someone is suicidal or homicidal, I think our mental health services are sometimes the poor child who we don't pay attention to. I've always been an advocate for mental health parity, that when we see something, we should let, if it's young people, get them the help they need and let their parents know. So if something's happening, they're equipped. And again, just offshoot on mental health. If someone breaks their arm, you can see that, or someone has a physical ailment, you can see it. Unfortunately, with mental health, people don't see it. That's why we've got to be much more diligent about it. And maybe things like that can help us along the way too.
Well, thank you. It's
And
that was a particularly thorny issue for me.
yeah. Thanks.
So getting back to the financial aspects, the dollars and cents, people say that New Jersey is losing businesses because it's not a business friendly state, or the taxes are too high for corporations. What do you say about that, and what would you do to help stem the tide of businesses crossing the border?
Okay, for New Jersey, we're obviously, and like New York, a high tax state. In New Jersey, if you don't want to put a business here, there's a couple close options. There's New York and Pennsylvania and Delaware in particular are lower tax states. If you move a little North Carolina, if you're in the middle of Montana or Alaska, it's hard to go somewhere. In New Jersey, it's easy to pick up and go. So look, I am frankly, I think we have to treat our businesses properly. If in the general sense, if a business paid in taxes, it a little bit more, it may not hurt them. It could hurt their payroll, but it could hurt New Jersey in that they say, I'm going to get up and go somewhere where the taxes are less. That's just the reality. So the things we do offer are good services. We really do. We expect when we call the police or the fire or the ambulance that someone will be there very quickly, because that's part of our infrastructure and what we do, and that certainly has a cost to it also. So we have to be cognizant of those services which people expect, but we should be courting more businesses, like everything from tourism. It's like something is like a $42 billion industry, and it could be so much better. And that's great. That's people coming in from out of state to helping us pay our bills. So I think if we can do things like that, we could help our businesses. And like the small businesses, just real quickly, if you have a small corporation in New Jersey with almost no sales, you're paying $500 minimum to the state. That could be dissuading little corporation from being here. That's not so much in other states. Plus the cumbersomeness. New Jersey, and I know this from my CPA hat, small corporation might file a tax return with a dozen pages, and the IRS might have two. Like, why does New Jersey need so much more information? And that costs the business time and money also. So it's the streamlining. And if you're efficient, you can pass the savings on to everybody too.
So you'd be in favor of abolishing the minimum corporate tax?
I would, pretty much, or dropping it to a minimum. Like an LLC pays 50, and I think they raised it to $75 a year. And the answer is yes.
Well, that's for registration, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's a registration fee.
That's not the minimum tax.
Johnson & Johnson and Mom and Pop Deli pay their $75 a year.
Right, and then there's this minimum tax that everybody is expected to pay.
Yes.
$450 or $500, right?
Yeah.
But you would want to get rid of that, or lower it.
Yeah, at least lower something that you don't have to feel so much. 500 could be a lot for a small business, especially in times like this.
Sure. So the new governor, or the next governor, is going to be dealing with, obviously, the state governors deal with the federal government all the time. And the next governor is going to be dealing with a Democratic president, Democratic Congress, actually.
Yes.
So how do you feel you get along with Democrats? I mean, you've had a little bit of experience. Well, you had experience on the Township Council. You've had a lot of experience on the Township Council. You've had experience on the Freeholder Board. How would Governor Levine get along with the administration of President Biden?
Frankly, I'd get along great. And I'm sure there are things we would disagree on, because there's things I agree and disagree with Republicans and Democrats and independents, but basically get along well. As mayor here, pretty much the whole time, it was almost all Democratic Democratic serving council people. So I'll close my eyes and you can ask them what they think, and you can get it objectively from them. And on the Freeholder Board, in the last year, we went from, while I was there, 2 to 3 Democratic Party freeholders. I think we did well. We, especially when I was dealing a little bit closer, let's say, with deputy mayors, most of them, I did well with. We had an understanding. We would try and do things together if they were agreeable. So I think I would do well. And again, you can, I'll close my eyes and ears. You can ask them what they think.
And again, there was another question I had on the tip of my tongue. Did you have something?
How do you feel about arts in New Jersey and funding? One of the industries that's been hit really, really super hard is the arts. The musicians are out of work. Now, in New York, Broadway is closed. Restaurants who had previously offered music opportunities. What would you establish any further funding to enhance the arts so that perhaps in an emergency such as this, it would not wipe out an entire industry?
The arts they're extremely important. They're what make humans the great cultural people we are. In the county, we always give out awards to seniors and youth and everyone in between on different kinds of cultural and heritage and art. And just as you say in New York, it's not just the people making 6 and 7 figures on Broadway who are hurt. It's the people who are just starting out and in the orchestra, and the people selling the little tchotchkes in the lobby, and the custodian and the deli across the street. They're all hurting because of this. Would I greater fund the arts? I wouldn't commit to anything because I want to see the budget. If all else being equal, it'd be something I would want. It does generate money for the state, just from a fiscal perspective. But the culture of seeing a good classical band or in the artwork is unequaled in a lot of ways. But I think we can also rely on our universities, Rutgers, Princeton, the state colleges, the private colleges, who who have that ability to help and show and showcase instead of each little thing being its own little kingdom, a little bit more together. So I don't want to see the arts fall. And if from a economic selfish perspective, if we could do more, especially in our cities, Newark, Camden, Trenton, New Brunswick, I think that enhances everything. Such as in New Brunswick, we've got a few good theaters. That's great. That's art, but that feeds the restaurants while they're feeding people and all the ancillary things around it too. So from a selfish perspective, fiscally, it's great. From a cultural human perspective, I think that's what we have to provide and teach people, especially youth.
I wanted to get back. I was going to ask you a question back when you were talking about taxes and the school taxes and that. And when you go to a school board meeting, you hear a lot of, well, just in talking to the school board members, you hear a lot of consternation of how much of the budget, the Franklin Township School Board budget, is diverted into the charter schools. We have, there are 2 charter schools in Somerset County, and they're both in Franklin Township. We almost had a third, but things didn't work out for them very well. And people are saying perhaps it's time to take a look at how, don't get rid of charter schools because clearly people want them, but maybe there's just a different way of funding them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, obviously they've got waiting lists, so there is demand.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel about it. The bottom line for me is, frankly, it's educating children. Do we do that with public schools? Do we do it with charter schools, private schools, parochial schools? Right now it's a combination. And how do we fund it? Here's how I view school choice. If you have someone wealthy, even beyond moderate, they have school choice. They can go to Rutgers Prep, a great school, or Petty, or send it to the Franklin school system, which I did with my children. I think it's a great system. Or St. Matthias or the charter school. But if you've got the money, you can certainly make your own choice. The people on the lower end, socioeconomically, don't have that choice. So I think it's got to be a judicious mixture. If we close the charter schools right now, the schools will be overrun. They had that money back, but their infrastructure, I don't think, could handle it. That's just a practical thing. Maybe they could in a year or two. So I think we need them. We could look at funding, but I think it's got to be fair across the board. If people can choose the kind of education they want their children to have, I think that raises all the ships. Hope I answered that for you.
Okay, so are you good with the way they're funded now, the charter schools?
Right now, the only alternative would be if people paid for them privately, and then they're private schools.
Right.
So technically, they're public schools. That's the way the law is written. And so it for me, it works well for now. I'm certainly willing to look at it and see how they're done. But once again, there's the heavy demand for it with waiting lists. So there's something people are asking for. Maybe it's to the parents there. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
What's different that you don't have maybe in the traditional public schools?
Maybe there should be a limit as to how many charter schools are allowed to open up in one particular town. You know what I mean? Because after a while, you start siphoning money away from the traditional school district. You're going to have a real problem. They're going to stop. And when things like that happen, when money gets tight, usually the first thing to go are arts and athletics, right? So.
Oh yeah, traditionally they were music, art.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't want to put this in a bad way. The athletics, which aren't high profile, they get cut too.
Right. Oh yeah.
Even Rutgers was guilty of that.
Exactly. You know, I asked you how you would get along with a Democratic federal government. I should have asked you how you would think you'd get along with a Democratic state government, since that's what we have.
You know, I think well there also. I think I get along well with the legislators around us, the Senate President, the Speaker of the House. I know both of them. I think they're great guys, frankly. I don't know what they think about me, but I think we could get along. And again, if iron out the issues, come out with something we can all get behind in a cordial manner.
It'd be very interesting. It'd be very interesting to have a governor from Franklin and also a state assemblyman from Franklin.
Yeah, we could share the same Uber to Trenton, or the same taxi to Trenton.
There you go. Save some money.
Yeah. See, trying to save it already.
There you go. So, what other than the fiscal issues, which I know is your wheelhouse, what other issues do you think are important in the state that the governor needs to, or the next governor would need to really look at, other than the pandemic and the fiscal stuff?
Okay, it's okay. Like I said, looking at things like why are we so behind on tourism, but that's kind of fiscal.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
It's I want a governor that people can be always proud of. Integrity is the highest order. Once you're governor for all of the people. And in going back to what I said in when I was mayor, we brought cameras in, always big on open government. And I'm still big on that. I think we should have super transparency. And I want to bring that to the state government too. I mean, I dislike when things are hidden or not known, or people try and dance around their spending or something that they do, whether it's in a municipality or Trenton. If you have a position, you take it. If you find someone good, I'm paraphrasing Harry Truman here. You find something to change your mind, so you change your mind and go on to the next issue. And if you believe in what you do, you stick with it, and then you go on to the next issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on bonding?
On bonding?
Yeah.
It's real. It's kind of a last resort, and it's for big projects. And we're the trouble is the state's almost bonded out for all that's been done. So sometimes you have to bond. It's a big project. If we had a build mega tunnels, fix the road, large projects, you're going to have to. But bonding is really kicking the can down the road. That just seems so unfair. You're making your children, your grandchildren pay for that, the next generation. If it can stand on its own, it should. And sometimes that's just a way of, I want to pay for something, I want something, but I don't want to pay for it right now. It's kind of a credit card mentality from a state government. It's again, there's things you have to bond for, but in essence, a lot of places, even the state, use it to semantically plug their operations, and that's just irresponsible.
Yeah.
If a corporation did that, they wouldn't be around too long. If you were, I
remember the late Pete Biondi when he was a freeholder. I guess was credited with bringing the pay-as-you-go philosophy to the county freeholders, and he was really against bonding. He really wanted to pay for stuff as you went.
Yeah, I think he was a pioneer or a big advocate.
So we have another question or a statement from Sean Hubbs, which is, what about remote online notarizations? It's been hard to get approved in New Jersey because of the fact that we aren't a full approval state. We're only to use RON in some ways in the pandemic status, but after the pandemic, it goes away. Can we make it a full-time thing? I'm going to assume that you know what that means.
I'm not so educated on that.
Okay.
Remote on. It feels like, and I'm sorry, Mr. Hubbs, I could be wrong. It sounds like getting things notarized online. I think that's what it means. You know, in this age where we can get signatures online and that's accepted all over, I'm guessing there's a secure way. There's a secure way to do that too. Something I would look at. I mean, I have to think most everything is online done these days. So
Hmm.
there's got to be a good way to do it.
I have signed, I think PJ, you have too. I think we've signed official documents online. You know, there's been a secure system to do that. So I think it probably could be done. You know, I wanted to talk about infrastructure. You mentioned infrastructure before, and that's a big issue in the state. And but I wish I could have had the presence of mind to invite my former colleague and friend Larry Higgs, who's a writer for NJ.com on, because he's a whiz when it comes to things like bridges and tunnels and whatnot. I know that we have a real big problem in this state with bridges. They're falling apart. They're old and they're falling apart. A lesser known problem that we have in this state is with the sewer infrastructure, the water lines that are running through this state. They are very old. And I know that there was a time when the DEP was really, a few years ago, when the DEP was looking at that, and I think the realization was it was going to cost millions and millions of dollars to fix these systems. Do you have any thoughts on that? And how you know, we got crumbling infrastructure above ground, and we got a crumbling water infrastructure below ground, which basically is costing a lot of money because it's springing leaks, you know, and water is leaking, and then they got to go in and they got to fix it. I think we had a problem on 27 or 518 where we had an issue like that, or maybe I'm mixing. Ted Chase would probably be yelling at me right now, but maybe I'm mixing that up with something else, with that not being the issue for that work being done. But what are your thoughts on infrastructure in that regard? I'm not even talking about roads. Don't even get me started on roads, but just those two issues.
And we've actually done, and then I'll get to more specifics, done fairly good in Franklin and Somerset County. Let me go to the county first. And I could have the numbers slightly off, but the county is pretty much responsible for all the bridges within a county, except like the big ones, like the ones going over the turnpike and things such as that. So we had, and again, I could be off, but this is the concept. There's something like 750 bridges in the county, and the county had them on a strict rotation. Like they'll do so many every year till you get to all of them. So it's not like which one's falling down, which one is hurting. It's like, let's put them on a normal rotation. Analogy, get your oil changed and your tires rotated regularly, and you're in good shape. So it's the same thing. There was on a good system, and that's where everyone should be. In Franklin, early on, when I was a councilman, and then early on as mayor, we did an entire, for a big section of town, redoing of the water pipes in certain parts of town so that they would be new and improved. Infrastructure is another one of those which is easy for politicians to kick down the road. Just the last day or two, we saw the big consequences when people were indicted in Michigan because they closed their eyes to the bad water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying, I don't know the specifics, I'm not saying anyone's guilty, of course, but the governor and others were there because it's such an easy thing to close your eyes on, because if you close your eyes, the next guy or woman down the road is the one who's going to have to handle it. So it's one of those things. It's not the things you see. It's always, I've often heard politicians love to build buildings, but not maintain them. If you build it, you say, oh, that nice thing I did, but maintaining it's kind of boring. So it goes into that second category. So it goes to the planning, and I know that's a little bit nebulous right now, but it's taking a look at all the bridges and putting them on a specific schedule. And yes, that might cost more now. It's pay me now or pay me twice as much later. And it's time for us to just take responsibility now. And I'm not saying we have to pay for everything now, but know what we're doing and make the proactive decision if we're not fixing it, and let everyone know why. Again, it's in your house. If the roof is leaking, you can't say, yeah, you know, I'll fix that in 20 years, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you want to invest in a couple buckets, you should probably do it soon.
Right. Michael Harris has another comment for us.
Yes.
With all that's going on in the country with respect to police and minority relations, how do you address these issues with local law enforcement? I don't support defunding police. However, I do support funds being allocated properly so police can receive proper and adequate training. especially as it relates to diversity training and community policing. And I just want to, I just want to clarify something there. That the phrase defund the
Funding.
police is a misnomer.
Yes.
I mean, the folks who say defund the police aren't saying, don't give the police any money. What they're saying is take some of the allocation to the police departments and move it into things like what you were saying before, Brian, mental health issues, so that if you have a call of a person who's distraught, you send a mental health professional there to help deal with that. And perhaps that's not what a police officer is trained for specifically. I mean, I know they get that kind of training, that de-escalation training, but a mental health professional would have a bigger toolkit to deal with something like that. So it's not a strict, just zero out the balance. I mean, nobody that I am aware of who uses that phrase, and I don't use that phrase because it's just not right.
It's really misleading.
It is. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. But could you respond to his comment?
Yeah, and again, Mr. Howard, thanks a lot. So in Franklin, I think we're actually ahead of the curve quite a bit. Our police are actually trained very well, and they have been. That's been a policy. Again, as councilman, mayor, and thank you to the police chiefs who advocated on that behalf. We had diversity training and also de-escalation training. If there's an issue, police aren't just going in there with their weapons. No, it's diffuse and ratchet up. And I've known when there's been mental health issues in the county, I'm related to someone who deals with that a bit. They say, she told me, Franklin police are actually very well trained. If there's an issue or there's a mental health problem, let's say in one of the facilities in town around the county, police in Franklin, they're very well trained to diffuse it and do what's proper. In the county, just within the last year, within the last few months before I left, we actually put in a pilot program where we're hiring one person with a social work kind of background, and Bridgewater's the pilot town. So that, you're right, not defunding, the police are just as much as they used to be. But if there's an issue of someone who they know or they suspect has a problem, whatever that might be, and it could be, okay, if it's domestic violence and there's violence, the police are there. But maybe afterwards, or there's a mental health issue, we call in this person to speak to the police, maybe to speak to the people involved, so that it's not just a police issue, it's the whole issue. So again, we're just putting that, I have every confidence that that's going to work well. And in the county, that's going to start expanding. And it just may be a good model for other places too. Mm-hmm. So,
well, that's good for the mental health. I think what Mr. Harris was talking about was minority related with police.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Relations. Yeah, I think that's what he was really referring to.
Yeah. Okay.
So what are your thoughts on that?
That's part of the diversity training too. And in Franklin, we have our minority population is higher than the state in general, which makes us the great diverse town we are. I like to think when I was mayor, had a great rapport with all aspects, and we have lower socioeconomic, higher socioeconomic, different ethnicities, and a range of religions and all types, and we kind of blended it together. I think that's, you're saying 8 villages, 1 community, if I got that properly.
Yeah.
But it's, we did that well, and again, I think we were pretty good in the town, and if it wasn't, someone could certainly tell me, and if things came up, I would certainly listen, and at least when I was mayor, the police chiefs were always very good about hearing things like that and doing what's proper. So yeah, it's race relations is not just something that's, it's fine, we'll have to handle it. It's something in this society, till we're totally race blind, which I look like, Martin Luther King's birthday coming up, which he advocated. It's something we just do have to be cognizant of.
So would you be in favor, as governor, would you be in favor of allocating or making allocations available for police diversity training, that sort of thing? Absolutely.
That works so well in town here in Franklin. I would say that's something that has to be done in the whole state. You've got to know everything from what someone's culture is, and again, culture could be racial, economic, socioeconomic, religious, whatever that might be, and mental health too, and help with the situation. So yeah, I think that's something. And a couple things could be done, and I haven't nailed this down specifically. Yes, either A, allocate money or provide incentives to towns who might take that up on their own.
Okay. I don't want to dominate the conversation. PJ, do you have anything right now?
I'm enchanted thus far.
Okay.
Brian, we've known each other a very long time, and what has always struck me about you as a politician is that whenever I hear you speak, you're emotional in your concepts. You're not cut and dry, from what I have heard. And how do you feel about that? That you're perceived as someone who cares. Now, I'm not acting as your campaign manager, advisor, or anything else, but it's something that that I see that seems to separate you.
Oh man, thanks a lot.
Just your comment about that, because I think there's a lot to be said right now about compassion for others, and certainly nationwide, we're seeing a lot of that absent.
In a lot of people that run for office because they think it'd be nice to hold an office. I think I first started when running for council because there's some project in town bringing a trucking company where there's people. It just didn't seem like a good idea, and I said this isn't good, and no one was doing anything. So I started going in because I wanted to do something. And this, I don't know if it's cliche, but I really do. That's one thing I liked about Franklin, like all the different kinds of people here. I love seeing the different kinds of people, their thoughts. I learn, much more than I think I've ever imparted to someone. Maybe if someone needs help or a pothole filled, I could do that. But it always fascinates me, and I'm always grateful. I was invited to different houses of worship or someone's house, or when there's been a tragedy, I've tried to visit, and then I might have learned something about what's going on too. So it's I don't know, we're put on here for a short time. You have to be, you have to feel for someone else, and maybe one of my favorite books, which I read in high school, was To Kill a Mockingbird, and Atticus told Scout, the Scout was the protagonist, Atticus was her father. You have to see things from someone else's perspective, crawl into their skin and look around, walk around in their shoes. And I kind of took that to heart a little bit. I don't mean to be corny or cliche, but I think when you're hearing someone, you gotta, where are they coming from? Why they think this? And I can disagree, but I can also maybe understand and agree too.
Yeah.
So thanks.
So you're getting into this race sort of late. There's already been one dropout, a guy who was a former state Republican chairman who was seen to be a pretty strong contender. Now there's one other strong contender, Mr. Chittarelli, who has a lot of endorsements locked up already. So you're jumping in the stream late, and you're swimming upstream. So what do you you like challenges? I take it.
Yeah, and it's a good observation. And look, I've known Jack Chittarelli for years. He's a good guy. I think he'd make a great governor. And Doug Steinhardt for years. He's a good guy. And I think he would do well too. So yeah, I'm going to look for the endorsements and everything that comes with it. That's absolutely good. I've always been a grassroots kind of person, so I want to make my case to people also, and hopefully that resonates. That being said, I will give everyone down the line their respect and speak to the county committee people too. Absolutely. But again, make myself hopefully known to the voters. The primary voters come June, and then hopefully all the general voters come November.
Right.
Well, if you were to summarize, why should one vote for Brian D. Levine for New Jersey governor? what would you say?
That's a good point. It's because,
It's the point.
okay, on if you're looking at my side of the aisle, it's because I feel I could win against Bill Murphy, and I think I've shown that. And when I've run, I've gotten solid support from my side of the aisle, plus independents, plus a good deal from the other side too. Just because hopefully I've been on the right side of the issues. So that's as far as someone who could actually win in the race. Now, why? Why would you want Brian to win in the race? Because I would bring fiscal sanity to the state. Again, it's what I do every day in my accounting practice. I live it, I know it. I've countless businesses and individuals. I deal with them. I would make integrity front and center and transparency. Because New Jersey it's so much, to me, so much less than it could be. I want New Jersey to be better, and we can be better. And I believe it can be better. And also all the people who are hurting because they don't have jobs or their businesses were closed or they've got to ask for extra help and they never wanted to. I feel it and I want to do something positive for them, not just stick a check in their bank account. Give them a job they can believe in and a tuition they can afford.
All right. Well, that was pretty wide ranging there.
Yeah.
That's not bad. And we appreciate you coming on our program, our news hour, and breaking the news to the public this way. We really do. You're a native guy, a native son, and you know, people in Franklin should know you've always had a good rapport, I think, with Franklin Township. Obviously, you won mayor 3 times, so that says something. So, PJ, anything else?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you asking me here, Bill, PJ. That's real nice of you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate that you extended it to us first, being that you are of Franklin and we are also Franklin, and we appreciate that consideration. So that this is an exciting time, Mr. Brian D. Levine.
Yes.
Who everyone still calls the mayor.
The mayor's such an easier title than anything else. That's fine. So
yes.
I'll answer to "Hey you" or "Hey Mister" or "Hey Bob" also.
Well, good luck in your travail in your traipsing across the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there somewhere that people can inquire more about Brian Levine?
I'm still, since I'm just forming it, setting up the website, the Facebook, etc. You can certainly look me up and call me. You know, if you look me up online, you can call my office.
Okay. And you'll let us know what the.
Oh yeah, very soon. I mean, when I say soon, I mean maybe in a day or two. That's all up and running.
Okay.
IT people wiser than myself are helping me with that.
You've got people on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, former mayor, former Freeholder director Brian Levine, thank you so much, and current gubernatorial candidate Brian Levine, thank you so much for coming on and
thanks too,
and announcing your candidacy to
sure.
our viewers. Thank you to the viewers as well for the great comments. I just want to. I'm gonna leave this. I'm gonna leave you with this one from Michael Harris. There
you're too kind. You're too kind.
All right. Well, thanks again, and good luck in your campaign. And we'll be talking to you. We'll talk to you during the course of the campaign and up until the primary and whatnot. And we'll see what happens.
You got it. Thanks.
All right, sir. Thanks a lot. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bye.
All right. That was good. That was interesting, huh? He loves to run. He loves to run for office.
Well, I think he brings something to the table that right now, with everything that's going on nationwide, with this chaos in DC right now, it's so refreshing to see someone who speaks from the heart. And there have been so many occasions where I've listened to Brian Levine impart a philosophy or impart a condolence that speaks to someone's sentiment. He gets when people are hurting. He gets that things can be improved, but he operates from where I sit from a level of compassion. And I think obviously experience and background is he has political expertise, that he brings a sensitivity to the plate that I think we could all use a dose of that.
Yeah.
Now, lest anyone accuse me of endorsing or supporting, uh, that is not a comment that alludes to either. I'm making an observation based on my experience as PJ Parker Franklin person, as well as Franklin reporter and advocate co-publisher. This is an observation that I have made about Brian Levine over the many years that I have known him as a citizen and also as mayor of our community, that he's compassionate. He gets it. And I think we need that. We need that.
Yeah.
So
I enjoyed his, on a few occasions I was there to cover a particular wedding or something that he would do. He always had nice things to say about marriage and all that. So it was very, very nice to hear. I think he did the first civil union in town.
oh, really?
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah.
Hmm.
So there you have it. All right, Franklin.
Oh, we're happy to break it to you first that former mayor, former freeholder director, former freeholder, Brian Levine, has thrown his hat into the gubernatorial ring on the Republican side. And we'll be keeping you informed as to his progress and his platforms and anything new that's coming across our path, because we need to know, Franklin.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough slog for him. He's behind the eight ball. He's got Jack Chiarelli has got a huge organization built up. He's got a lot of endorsements from county and local Republican chairmen, including Franklin's Republican chairman. So that's going to be interesting. But who knows? You never know. Franklin, if you want to know what's going on in town, the most complete local report of news in Franklin Township, the most community local news you're going to read anywhere of any of the news organs that claim to cover this township. It's www.franklinreporter.com. We would appreciate your support in the way of subscriptions. $37 a year. It's really not that much, and
it's 10 cents a day.
10 cents a day, and you would be doing a lot to support local, independent community journalism, which is really, really needed now. If you would like to get a hold of PJ Parker, the director of advertising, she is reachable at ads@franklinreporter.com. If you would like to talk about advertising on any of our vehicles, the website, the Morning Report, Daily News Blast, our live streams, or podcasts like this, or the Monthly Digest newspaper. She's the person to talk to. You could talk to me too, but she's the main person to talk to. If you have news tips, if you have complaints about stories, letters to the editor, things like that. If you want to complain about a letter to the editor, which I got, or complain about an editorial, which I got today, which was fun, editor@franklinreporter.com. We are also on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We have a Twitter feed. We're all over the place. So
Yes, and we're happily accused of that we're seen in many, many places.
yes.
And that's gratifying when someone comes up to one of us and say, "Oh, you're the Franklin Reporter. We see you all the time. Thank you."
Yes.
Well, that was a long time coming. We've been doing this for now 7 years, and it's gratifying that what we're doing is being appreciated. And from the beginning, we're bringing Franklin to Franklin.
Absolutely.
We're not ignoring the bad or the ugly, but we are certainly extolling what's honorable, what's good, what's excellent in our community, and highlighting that, because a sense of pride in one's community is absolutely essential, and we have so much to be proud of here in Franklin.
Absolutely. I want to thank Michael Harris Sr. I want to thank Russell Jones Sr. and Sean Hubbs for the kind words. We do appreciate your support. Tell your friends. Tell your families. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And please don't hesitate to share these news podcasts. We
Right.
are fairly new at presenting this Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. And we seem to be growing in terms of the popularity of it. And that's also gratifying. So we're giving you digital news 24/7. We're giving you monthly print news, a daily email blast for the day's top stories, fuel prices, and traffic reports, as well as the news hour, which highlights issues that you didn't know about or would like to know about. So on that note, you have an issue or a situation or just something you'd like us to explore further, we're happy to take that under advisement. And who knows, you may see your idea as a feature of Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour.
It could happen.
Yes.
I seem
And
to be
next
growing.
week, our next one, this coming Thursday, January 21st,
Yes.
we will be featuring news from Franklin Township Parks and Recreation on the retirement of longtime, over 40-year longtime Alice Osipowitz, who, because of this pandemic, we couldn't have a big celebration, but people need to know what she has meant on the inside of Franklin Township, everything that has gone through her nimble fingers and how she's orchestrated what's gone on the Parks and Recreation and events side of Franklin Township. And Bo Burtis, who's got big shoes to fill, but he's a lovely gentleman and got lots of experience and background. And we'll be chatting with them, saying goodbye to Alice and saying thank you to Alice, as well as seeing where Parks and Rec are going over the next several years. The idea, again, has crossed our mind, and we're starting with Alice and Bo, that it's about time that we introduced, as best we can, all the different departments, all the committees, the councils that comprise Franklin Township, the people who are making decisions and who are fielding concepts all day long to run this community as they do. So we'll be touching on the various factions within Franklin. So again, if you have an idea you'd like to see us flesh out, we'll do our best. Send them to editor@franklinreporter.com or ads@franklinreporter.com. And who knows, your topic may be a subject for our news hour.
Yes. My face seems to be fleshing out lately. I don't know what's going on here.
It's called pandemic and no gym's open.
Yeah, well, no, the gym is open. I'm just not going.
Ah, okay.
I mean, I go, I have a membership we have a membership at Fitness Factory. I just don't go, and I'm getting all this stuff on my bones.
On your bones. Okay.
I'll be back, Fitness Factory. Don't worry, I'm coming. And folks, they are advertisers with us, and we appreciate that. And I was nervous about going back, obviously, but boy, they do it right. Everybody's really distanced. Everybody has to wear their mask. They're very diligent about making sure people wear masks. They've got wipe stands all over the place, so you're always wiping stuff down after you're done with it. So, little plug for our gym.
Mm-hmm. And if I can also say, any of the restaurants in town that we've done live streams for or have visited, everyone is so conscious of taking care of that aspect of it, that people can feel safe. Yeah. That there's distancing, there's masking that's absolutely required, there's hand sanitizing, there's ventilation, windows open when it's all practicable. That Franklin is caring about Franklin on so many levels. So please patronize our restaurants, patronize our businesses, whether they are advertising with us or not. And of course, we encourage you to support us through your advertising, because we're giving you news, and you can travel on the content of the news to feature your product or service with the Franklin Reporter and Advocate's varying publications.
Exactly.
So,
all right. Well, that wraps up another edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. I want to thank you again for tuning in and for clicking on, if that's the case. And we will see you again real soon. So until then, Franklin, as usual, stay safe. PJ, say that thing you always say.
And we'll be back.
We will.